if they say, well, yeah, I think $5 is a good price, then you know that you're dealing with a crazy person. Hey everyone, this is Mike with Profit to Prosper, a place where we share tips and strategies to turn employees into CEOs and CFOs, and that stands for Chief Freedom Officers. If you want to prosper through profits, join our community. Consider subscribing. Today we're going to be talking about how to charge your customers in the high-end delivery business. So when you get started in the delivery business, one of the questions that people mostly ask is, what do I charge? And that can be a question that either gets you excited or makes you really anxious when you think about what you're supposed to charge the customer. Because you want to make sure it's a balance between what's fair to them and what's beneficial to you. Because if it's not fair to them, then they'll overlook you and go with another provider and send you an email to let you know that you weren't good enough. If it's not beneficial for you, then that's what I call slave labor. And I don't believe in slave labor. And so you want to make sure that your price is a balance between what's beneficial, what works for them, and what is beneficial to you. So there are 4 different ways that we're going to talk about pricing today. And just a side note, in order for you to get started in this business, there are myths out there that it takes a lot to get started. The truth is, it only takes 4 areas of focus to get started in this business. The area of operations, skills, the equipment, and the way to find jobs. Once you focus on those areas, and this series, by the way, will be going through different areas of that list. So this section that we'll be focusing on is the job section, how to get jobs. Within that section, we're going to be focused on how do you charge your customer? What's the proper way to charge? Now, that's a bit of a trick question because the way to charge really depends on you and your operation. Every company is different, and it's really a teetering job of being able to justify the cost that you send to the customer. Uh, you can choose to be competitive, and if there's nothing unique about your business, being competitive is your biggest advantage, right? But when you start to differentiate yourself and build a brand, building a brand simply means that people are able to recognize there's something unique and different that you offer that you can't get anywhere else. Then you're starting to build a brand. You're starting to brand people with your particular version of this service. Okay, so once you start to do that, then you will have unique demand. That means you'll have demand that cannot be filled with any other company. So you'll move from being a commodity to being a specialized delivery business. And so that's where you want to be. That's where you want to go. That's why all of these videos are made. And that's also the reason why I put together my 65-page ebook walkthrough. It's a full color walkthrough of the journey that I took from a $700 van all the way up to building a 6-figure business in this industry. So this is the goal. This is the only way I know how to consult. I don't train or teach on how to stay just a regular run-of-the-mill garden variety delivery business. That's not where you make money. That's not where you begin to command a premium price. So if you want to command a premium price, you have to build a brand, and you have to specialize in something. You have to be able to differentiate your service from anyone who's able to get a job. Now, the benefit of this industry is that there is a low, almost non-existent barrier to entry. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because it means that you don't need a lot to start, but it also means that the floodgates are open and many unsavory actors enter this industry not doing a good job and defaming the name of good companies. So you do not want to be in that class. So if you're going to get started, you can make great money, you can build a good business, but you also have to put care into making sure you're giving people a superior customer experience. How do you charge? Well, if you're starting and you hadn't got started yet, and this is the first video that you're watching on how to charge because you have a customer that you've got to fulfill on and you need to know how much to charge them, well, the good news is I have a solution for that. The first way you charge a customer and you have no knowledge of what you're going to need to know in order to come up with a charging system, it's fine. You don't need to know it immediately. All you need to know is what number works for the customer. Now, yes, it's true that you may not get a price that is beneficial to you, but when you start out with a price that's beneficial to your customer, that makes them feel like they're in control. And when you do that, you're able to line up a potential job down the line as well and give yourself some experience. Now, I'll put it like this. Getting a job at a discount is better than not getting a job at all. Because even if you break even on what it takes, what it costs to do the job, you also gain something else in the area of education and experience. So it's never a lose-lose for you. So if someone is ready to go and you don't know enough about this industry to get started in having a proper charging system, don't worry, you can fulfill that immediately. The question is, the script is, what is a number that we can both feel comfortable with? What do you usually pay for a shipment like this? Or what's your budget? Any of those questions will work in this area, and you'll be able to sound like a pro because you'll let them decide a cost that works for them. And now, if you do feel like the price that they are asking for is so unreasonable, you're not beyond the ability of negotiating. But when you negotiate, just inch up mildly, not too aggressively. So let's say, for example, the person says, well, how much is it going to charge? How much is it going to cost? And then here's what you do. Instead of fumbling and picking, fumbling and hoping words fall out of the sky, what you do is you turn it back on them, right? Because you want to get a feel for where they are, right? You want to get a feel for what they're thinking. And so the question you ask is, well, what do you usually pay for a shipment like this? Or what would be reasonable for you? What's a price that we can both agree on? What do you think is fair? Any of those statements. And if you want to be a bit more savvy, I have a term that I use and I teach my team members. It's ABS, always be selling. And selling is not what you think, right? And it's the same way I talk about my ebook. You either buy it or you don't. Whether you buy it, it works for me, works for you. Whether you don't buy it, still works for you. Me, may not work for you, but it still works for me because there is someone who will want the value that's inside of it. So it's no sweat off my back. And so selling is really about positioning your offer to be a benefit to someone, or unveiling the value of the offering that you have. So in this regard, when you sell, you're basically letting them know what you're after and what you can provide. So the way I'd word it is, so they'd ask, what will you charge me? And then I'd ask, well, I kind of like the conversation that we're dealing with. I like you as a person, and I'd love to build a business relationship with you. I'm looking to build a long-term relationship with you. So tell me what you think is fair for both of us. Irresistible. They won't be able to resist it because number one, you establish your sentiment, you establish your intention. This is not a one-shot deal. You intend on fulfilling on your promise so that they can come back again and they'll feel comfortable and confident to do that. You also put them in control by giving them the option of choosing the price. They don't know that if you don't like the price, you're going to negotiate, but at least it puts them, it puts them in a place of feeling like they have control. And number three, you get to find out if you're dealing with a sane person or a crazy person. Because if they say, well, I want you to move this, well, I think $5 is a good price, then that's where you say you are mad and hang up. But if they say, well, yeah, I think $5 is a good price, then you know that you're dealing with a crazy person. But if they say something to the effect of $80 or $90 or $120, you can work with that depending on your expenses. What will it take to get that piece to that next town? What can we work out? Or I was more in the range of 180. What can we work out? Remember, price is elastic and subjective in most cases. So there really isn't an objective price unless you're going to engineer it down to the T and find statistics for things to anchor every single number to. Price is subjective. So that means this person's going to have a price they feel comfortable with. You're going to have a price that you feel comfortable with. And the key is to find a price that is a compromise between the two that both of you can feel comfortable with. Okay, so if the price is too low, you can always upgrade. And now if you do have time to develop your pricing structure, here are the 3 areas where you will need to create pricing, because you won't be able to survive with a one pricing system fits all kind of structure. You're going to need to have multiple pricing structures so that you can benefit in different situations. The first type of structure will be called the fixed price structure. So fixed price structure is what we just talked about earlier. $80, $120. Yeah, I'll do it for $140. This structure is beneficial for those who just want to get in, get out, and start with a clean and lean system for quoting and delivering a piece, right? But when you're dealing with more sophisticated customers and businesses that are customers, you're doing business to business transactions, you're going to need to upgrade and evolve your pricing structure. So so the fixed model usually works with customers or private customers or residents and people who just want something moved and generally wants to make sure that it'll be taken care of, but they don't want to have to deal with all the hassle, fuss, upcharges, and things of that nature. But then when you're dealing with a business that has to explain and justify their costs and things of that nature, then you're going to need to be more intentional and deliberate with your pricing, because they're most likely going to have experience with working with other shippers. And we've had to develop 3 different pricing structures. So the 3 different pricing structures are the hourly rate, and that is where you basically figure out how much it's going to cost you for each hour of work. So in order to develop your hourly rate, you're going to have to, it all involves you looking at your expenses, looking at what you have to pay, looking at how much things are going to cost for every hour that you are on the job. And you're going to come up with an hourly rate that covers your operations. And the way you use the hourly rate is for every hour that you are on task for that customer, they will pay you a certain amount. Now, some companies start at $30 an hour. Some go up to $70 an hour, $120 an hour, even $280 an hour. But those are the premium services where the company's name and brand stands in a class by itself. So you have to figure out what your pricing structure is in your hourly rate. And the way an hourly rate works is you get a start time and then you get an end time. Whether you disclose that with your customer, the start time and end time is up to you in your contract. It's not necessary, but if you want to build trust with them, then you can agree on the start time and then you can agree on the end time, just for transparency and clarity. So and also, one thing that you want to look at with an hourly system is you want to find your hourly minimum, right? Your minimum hours. So that means, do you start at a 3-hour minimum or a 2-hour minimum? What that means is, regardless of the job, you start out with 2 hours of 2 hours of pay already activated by you beginning that job. So let's say, for example, you are at $60 per hour. Your minimum, if your minimum is a 2-hour minimum, then every job that you get, even if they use you for 5 minutes, you're going to get $120. So instituting a minimum is very important. Notify your customer that there is a minimum and explain that you have a 2-hour minimum. Ours is a 2-hour minimum because we know that for most jobs, we can get the job done in 2 hours, as well as it doesn't benefit us to come out and travel and deal with traffic in order to get to a job, only for a job that's going to last for 1 hour. So find your hourly rate. So you'll take a look at your expenses, and once you look at your expenses, you'll see how much it costs you to do a job, a particular job. And what you'll do is you'll break that job down into hours, decide how much profit you want to get, and then you place your hourly rate there. The hourly rate works well for jobs where you're close to home and you're really paying for man hours. So we call this on-site work, where we're not bringing a piece from one place to another. We're just moving pieces in the space. Galleries, businesses, and individuals like to use us for on-site work. That means that we come to a place and we're just moving and arranging items in the space, and then when we're done, we travel back to base. These are different from jobs where you're taking a piece from A and bringing the piece to point B. The next way you charge is location to location, especially for specific zones that you frequent. Finding those locations and putting what is called a base rate. That's the rate that you take to go from here to there, right? And these are for common areas that you frequent. So this will be for you to determine and decide, so that you can speed up your quoting system and how you get prices to people. So once you discover the locations that you go to frequently, you create a base rate for those locations, as well as different add-ons and surcharges to help you. Are there any stairs? Is it going to take extra packing material? Does it need to be boxed, or any of these other items that will bring the price up? So you can put different surcharges in there. And I talk about this in the ebook, so we're going to keep this moving along. The third way to charge your customers is a per mile rate. Okay, and I go through the exact calculation on how you go through the per mile rate, but it does involve you knowing your expenses or being able to project your expenses as well as the projected mileage that you're going to do for the year. And so once you get that number, you divide it. You divide your expenses by the amount of miles you expect to travel in the year, and then that will give you your mileage dollar per mile rate. And that's what you charge for longer trips that take you way out of town. For us, our circle is 90 miles. So anything above 90 miles, we switch it to a per mile rate, because you want to make sure that you get your price for every mile that you drive. You want to make sure that you get a price that works for you, because you want to make sure that the more you drive, your price is going to accommodate all the expenses that arise the more miles you do drive. So one consideration to think about when you're creating your per mile rate is something called a deadhead mile. And a deadhead mile is a mile where you have nothing in your vehicle. It's a mile where you go there, either you pick up and you go to pick up. While you're going to pick up, there's nothing in your vehicle. How do you charge for that? Because you can't necessarily charge the customer for that. If you're premium enough, maybe you can. But normally, you don't charge the customer that price from your base to go pick up the piece. The job usually starts from the pickup of the piece to the delivery. As a matter of fact, some savvy customers will show up with you knowing the exact mileage that it takes to pick up and drop off the piece. So if you're going 20 miles away and then they see 20 extra miles added onto the mileage, or I don't know how you let them know your mileage that comes up to your rate. So a savvy customer will be able to know how the distance between pickup and drop off. I mean, everyone has GPS. So you charge that rate from pickup to drop off. That's your dollar per mile rate, whatever it is. So if you're at $2 per mile and you're doing a 50-mile trip, then you guessed it, that's a $100 trip, right? Just between pickup and drop off. But what happens while you're traveling deadhead miles? Deadhead miles are usually a percentage of, or a portion or percentage of the full dollar per mile rate. So you don't charge the full rate for deadhead miles, but a lesser rate that doesn't inflate the price to unreasonable amounts. All right. So if your price per mile is $1, then your deadhead rate could be 40 cents, 30 cents, up to 70 cents, depending on what works best for you. So those are the two things to consider. And if you need an exact example of a calculation, you can find one in the ebook, and you can also find other models and calculators online. There are calculators that can help you create an hourly rate or create a price per mile rate. So you can also Google those and look those up. If you have another pricing structure that works for you that I didn't mention, by all means, join the conversation, enhance it, and share what you've got. Share the goods and let us all know and benefit together, because profits are always better than wages. Remember to subscribe, like, and hit that bell for any notifications of any useful videos we come out with. Until next time, see you in the